Update. Am I the asshole for not letting my kids wear pajamas? Original post here. My daughter and I got back from the doctor a few hours ago, so I thought I'd update everyone, as my last post got a pretty large response. I'm a good dad, that's something I'm sure of. I love my kids, I try very hard to be a good parent, and I know I've done that. A few people commented on my post saying I was ruining my kids' lives, etc., which is not true in the slightest. That being said, I was somewhat wrong about the pajamas. As some people mentioned, changing out of pajamas acts as a reset for them and helps them acknowledge that they're starting their day. This is why my wife and I started the rule in the first place. But obviously things change over time. Shortly after getting my asshole title, I went to talk things out with my daughter, intending on figuring out a way to change the pajama policy so that we were all happy with it. I re-explained the reasoning behind the rule, shifting mindsets in the morning, and she ended up crying and told me that, changing her mindset didn't matter because she can't stop falling asleep anyway. I asked her what she meant, and she explained that she's been falling asleep multiple times a day, even when she's changed out of her pajamas. My wife is close friends with a somnologist, so we set up an appointment and he spoke with my daughter. He recommended that she go for a polysomnogram and MSLT sleep tests. And it turns out, she has narcolepsy. We're currently discussing treatment options with her doctors to see how we can help her, but it's a big relief for her to know that there's a reason behind why she's been struggling with sleep. As for the pajamas, we sat down as a family and discussed it together. We all decided we want to keep the rule, but reworked it so the kids can eat breakfast in their pajamas, as long as they're changed and starting online school on time. Also, a lot of people asked why my wife and I don't limit my kids' screen time. We limit my son's as he's a bit younger, but my daughters are extremely good at limiting their own. They're both bookworms and understand that too much screen time is harmful, so they don't spend a lot of time on their devices anyway, so my wife and I have never felt the need to step in. An amazing amount of problems can just disappear when people are willing to actually just sit down and talk about them. That sounds like a great compromise. I hope your daughter feels better now she understands she has a medical condition affecting her sleep. Great to hear you have a formal diagnosis for your daughter while she is still young, Op. I had a friend with narcolepsy and she had a few nasty accidents, such as having an episode and falling downstairs and going under in the bathroom while cleaning her teeth and hitting her head on the vanity, before they got her stabilized. Even then she was never able to drive. Some people think narcolepsy is a bit of a joke, but it can be serious. Hopefully your daughter's case is relatively mild. Great update. I'm glad you guys figured out what's really going on. And honestly, ignore the people saying you're ruining your kid's life. Reddit can be incredibly overdramatic. Your daughter is likely going to need to take very regular naps as part of managing her condition. I really would still have another look at that rule even if everyone agreed. It may make managing get condition even more difficult and put extra stress on her trying to make sure she's always in the correct clothes. I love seeing an update with an op changing his mind compromise for the better, and it's a good metric for judging a parent. Good for you and your family. I hope your daughter gonna be well. Good for you on open communication, but bottom line, the policy is still outrageously dumb. That rule is still fucking ridiculous though. I get wanting to get on with your day part, but sometimes people just want to lounge around all day and just have a lazy day, and there is nothing wrong with that. Am I missing something? I don't recall ever hearing about the daughter having a potential medical issue. Dad of the Year didn't notice his daughter suddenly dropping asleep out of nowhere. Newsflash, your policy is still stupid. There's a pandemic going on, things are confusing and stressful, especially for the younger ones. Let them wear their fucking pajamas. As for the pajamas, we sat down as a family and discussed it together. This is something you should have done from the beginning, to be honest. The narcolepsy has nothing to do with the PJ thing though. Somehow this is a very controversial opinion, so I expect to be downvoted, but having a rule for kids that says they have to get dressed during the day is not unreasonable. The rule was a bit strict before, with even breakfast in PJs not being allowed. But the rule as it stands now is fine. It's not unreasonable as a parent to have a rule that you have to get dressed during the day. I see many people in the other thread commenting that they wear PJs all day. Which is also fine, for them. If you want to hang around in your PJs during the day as an adult, then do your thing, more power to you. But this is not bad parenting in the slightest. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Edit 2. Seems the comments have since become a lot more reasonable, faith in humanity restored. Imagine having a damn family meeting over wearing pajamas in your own home. Unbelievable. Glad you're taking your kid to the doctor, but man, you are one uptight individual. You are the asshole. She ended up crying and told me that, changing her mindset didn't matter because she can't stop falling asleep anyway. I asked her what she meant, and she explained that she's been falling asleep multiple times a day, even when she's changed out of her pajamas. My wife is close friends with a somnologist, so we set up an appointment and he spoke with my daughter. He recommended that she go for a polysomnogram and MSLT sleep tests. And it turns out, she has narcolepsy. LMAO, I don't believe this at all. Fellow narcoleptic here, her life will change getting a diagnosis. Young heart, so happy to hear she has answers and you caught it early before her schooling was affected. This is still an extraordinarily silly rule to have, but I'm glad that your daughter got her diagnosis. That's cool, but you're still This is optimal parenting. Making a rule you feel is in the best interests of your children. We're similar in our house but not so strict about it, finding out that it's not fully working as they get older and making adjustments after having a discussion together. From my experience, and certainly not a hard and fast rule, if children are overly emotional about a particular thing, then often there is something else going on and they're using that opportunity to lash out, especially teenagers. Lol. Lies. Suddenly narcolepsy? She didn't get blood tests for anemia first. Bullshit. My parents had the same pajamas rule. You wear them upstairs in your room, and change before going downstairs. And I miraculously turned out okay. I always really liked starting the day off officially with a new change of clothes. It's good that you talked to your daughter, though. Hey man. Not saying you're not a good father, you may be, but you get to decide if you're a good dad, like a chef gets to decide his restaurant is great. Yeah, still a huge A. I can only imagine all the other arbitrary controls you try to impose on your family. When they grow up they will resent you. This is just gross. I was diagnosed with narcolepsy at 15 too. Here are some things I wish I'd done my parents had done back then. School accommodations, extra time for tests when necessary, etc., because it would have helped me so much on days when I just couldn't stay awake, and because it would have normalized the concept for me. I really needed these accommodations in college but didn't have any point of reference. Talk about it and let her feel comfortable talking about it. Understand that narcolepsy totally sucks, but with the right combination of medications it won't necessarily affect her daily life that much. You learn the tricks over time, but it does take time. You are the asshole since you are keeping your pointless and illogical rule. Consider this. Having and enforcing rules that have no purpose, make no sense and don't deliver anything other than cause tension and needless annoyance is bad for the kids, and it will undermine yourself when it comes to setting rules that actually mean something. The kids will resent you. You know these threads that pop up on AskReddit regularly. What was this weird rule your house had that you thought was normal until you found out it wasn't? Yeah, that's you guys. Edit. I just remembered, did I read correctly? Do you deny your daughters to have breakfast in their jammies? What the fuck is wrong with you, man? Edit 2. I get downvotes probably for being a bit harsh, but believe me, this man needs to hear it. This is not okay. Dear guy who thinks he's a good dad, sir, you're still an asshole. You're on your kids about this PJ issue, but you completely missed that your kid was suffering and you're still on about the whole PJ thing. You're insane. Stop patting yourself on the back when your kids can't even be comfortable in their own home. Still the asshole. I think I'm one of the few people on here who doesn't think the pajama rule is completely weird. Never had that rule growing up, but it's definitely a rule I've enforced for myself. When my sister was at her most depressed, I really encouraged her to try to get up and get dressed every day, and she says years later that it made a huge difference. That said, I'm really happy to see that you guys were able to deal with this in a really logical manner. It's really important that you took the time to hear your daughter out and what her concerns were. It's even better that you took the time to go get her a formal diagnosis and get her help. I think everyone in your household is going to appreciate this rule a lot more over time because they've now had a contribution to why it matters. I mean, reading the original post. Hell, if I wasn't allowed to chill in a onesie at home I'd be so miserable. Home is somewhere to chill, it's not a concentration camp. Sure, get dressed for school or work or whatever, but outside of that, why's it matter? I'm glad you took the time to listen to your kids and figure out what was wrong with your daughter. Please ignore the people here who are angry about your perfectly normal, reasonable rule. It's good to have a routine, and making a strong separation between bedtime and daytime is good sleep hygiene which everyone should practice. Parents are just in love with control lol. Hey, congrats on talking to kid though. My parents let us wear pajamas the last hour or two downstairs before bed, but not to breakfast and never outside. You were a bit strict, but I agree with the rule to a certain extent. But you need to be more relaxed, like when the kids are sick. I'm glad your daughter is getting help. Take care. I missed the original post, but it sounds like while you might have been a situational you're not generally one, and that you have a good enough relationship with your daughter that she was finally able to tell you what was going on when you sat down to talk with her. I'm also so glad you listened to her and brought her to a somnologist. Good on you for listening to your daughter. She just wanted to feel respected. May I ask how you didn't notice her falling asleep at odd points in the day? I'm going to add a bit to this. As a high schooler in the pandemic, the best thing you can do is listen to your kids' concerns. Have respect for their thoughts, as you would a coworker's. Guide them to be able to care for themselves. You're doing good, and I admire you for sitting down and talking to your daughter. LMAO, that was such a stupid argument XD. I don't understand the underlying hostility to naps. I love this heart. Happy to hear not only the compromise but that your daughter's future with this early diagnosis is much brighter. Also, I didn't see the old story until I saw this, but implementing a PJ time in my schedule will probably help enormously with quarantining, so thanks indirectly for the recommendation. I feel like the people calling you the asshole over your pajama rule are being pretty harsh. It doesn't sound like you are an overly strict parent. It's okay for parents to have rules. Sheesh. Did all these people calling you a crazy, controlling parent just get to run around like wild indigo children? You said in the original post that you made the rule because your eldest falls asleep unless she changes. Now she's made clear to you that she was falling asleep anyway, and you've confirmed there's a medical condition causing it. What's the point of the rule then? I've got narcolepsy and it's hell. Even with medication, it just plain sucks. Experts estimate that the fatigue we narcoleptics feel is the equivalent of going 48–72 hours without sleep. And contrary to popular belief, we don't all just fall asleep at the drop of a hat, although sometimes it can present like that. The most common presentation is just excessive daytime sleepiness. I'm so glad she was able to get diagnosed so that she can get help. I think the average diagnosis time from the onset of symptoms is over 10 years, so she's very lucky. Best wishes. Recommended reading. You're still an asshole. The rule is still pretty dumb. Pajamas are comfy. I hope you have good insurance. Narcolepsy medicine is so expensive, but it's better than the alternative. So good you caught this now, before she learned how to drive. You are a good parent. Although I do think that the rule is a little silly, it does reinforce maturity and accountability, which I applaud. People on this sub are very quick to hit a nuclear option. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in the comments somebody mentioned CPS. People blow these things way out of proportion, and I guess that's the whole point of this sub, but please don't take it to heart. I'm glad that the root of the issue got solved. What the heck? I will never take wearing my pajamas around the house for granted ever again. What a weird rule. Sometimes when we say something harmful and go back and apologize, we find the real problem. That's what makes a parent go from good to great. You are a good dad to bring your child a doctor and work on a solution. My celiac disease went undiagnosed for 3 decades, because when I was a child my parents said this is how I am, and there is no problem until I'm literally starving to death. I'm thin and lazy with growing pains, and that's it. I'm used to it. So, I'm really proud of you how you solved the problem. Ops spelling of pajama is driving me to murder. What a narcissistic control freak. This story makes me so happy I don't live with or talk to my parents anymore. This sounds like the exact kind of thing my mom would do, where her reasoning makes sense to her but is actually fully out of contact with reality. Can't help but think this update is slightly imaginary. He was called out on the asshole in the original post, no mention of any potential health issues at all in the prior post. Now all of a sudden it's about his daughter's health issue and attempting to big himself up as a really good parent. No, even with the health issue aside, it's kinda messed up to control and dictate what your children can't wear around their own house. You need to realize that you do not control your children. What if when they eventually move out to their own homes and you visit them and shock horror, they wear pajamas to the kitchen? Oh no, will you kick off and demand they change? You're controlling. End of.